Green is on now. Hey, good evening. Welcome to our special call council meeting tonight. It's August the 12th, 2025. It is now a little after 6 p.m. We do have a quorum present for the night. To my left, Ms. Hall will not be in attendance tonight. She has a battle going on with COVID, and we wish her a speedy recovery. She's in our prayers, but from what I hear, she's doing better. And also, Ms. David, she will not be here. Desiree's grandmother is in the hospital, so. But we got a quorum, and we got everybody here, and we're gonna carry on. So, and I'm gonna ask Councilman Warwick to put his deacon's hat on tonight and give us a prayer. And I'm gonna ask Mr. Buckley to do our pledges for us.
Let us pray. Father God, we come once again just to tell you thank you. Lord, I want to thank you, Lord, for one more day. Thank you, Lord, for last night's lying down, this morning early rising. Thank you, Lord, for just keeping us, Lord, and blessing us with our health, life, health, and strength. Lord, thank you for keeping our families, all our friends and loved ones. Lord, continue to bless the city of Cleveland, Lord. Continue to just hold us all together, Lord. Lord, continue to bless this council, bless this whole panel, Lord. Continue to cover our mayor, city manager, each individual, Lord, that is involved within our city works, Lord. Lord, our street department, our fire department, our police department, library department, whichever department I forget, Lord, please, Lord, just keep them, Lord. Lord, thank you, Lord, for your goodness, your kind mercy. Lord, thank you for this meeting tonight, Lord. We know it's a call meeting, Lord, but Lord, thank you, Lord. Let everything be done decent and in order, Lord, and to your will, Lord. And Lord, just bless the ones that will come up and do their presentations on the night, Lord. Lord, just anoint them and hold them closer and closer to you, Lord. For Lord, we just love you, adore you, magnify you. And to you be the glory and all the praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, we're gonna jump right in. Public comments. Any person with city-related business may speak to the council in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The city council may not discuss or vote on any matter raised in public comments unless it's specifically on the agenda. To speak during a council meeting, you must be recognized by the presiding officer. Ms. Juanita, do we have anyone signed up for tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. There will be no public comments. Okay. So we're going to move right along to our regular agenda. Item number 4, discussion and possible action on discussion and action on a compensation study prepared by Mr. Matt Weatherly with Public Sector Personnel Consultants, PSPC. Mr. Weatherly, would you come forward? Ms. Angela also, yeah.
Council, basically we are coming before you to ask for action on acceptance of the compensation study that was done. And so I have Matt here to present the study that was conducted, and any questions that you have, he can address those.
Very good. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Appreciate the opportunity to visit with you this evening. We prepared just a brief overview of our study methodology, highlighting our findings, kind of lead right back in, I think, to staff conversation around budget implementation options. Generally, when you do these studies, you're really trying to answer some key questions. One, how are we doing compared to those that we're competing with, for staff? And if we're not where we want to be, where do we wish to position ourselves? Where can we position ourselves to offer sustainable salaries for staff? Do we have turnover? Do we have positions that are hard to fill? This is never intended to replace the regular budget conversation. I believe the last study that was done by an outside consultant was right around 2019, 2020, implemented a few years later. Obviously, in that time, we had a pandemic. We had kind of rampant inflation in 2023 that saw a lot of wage growth. So the context that we do these in varies almost every year. We've had a chance to work with quite a few of your neighbors, some 5, 6, 7 times over the last maybe 25, 26 years that I and some of my staff have been doing this work. It's not just the Matt show. We've got full-time staff here. We've got full-time staff in Arizona and in California. We do maybe 60 or 70 of these annually, predominantly at the local government municipal level, but also for counties, special districts, utility districts, library districts. All that qualifies us to do is ask good questions. What factors influence your city's ability to recruit and retain staff? When we lose staff, where do we lose them to? Who has jobs like ours? So just kind of painting a little bit of context. Our methodology started really at the workforce level. Employees were invited to review their job description through the completion of a position analysis questionnaire. We used that content as the basis of our market comparisons. When we do a salary survey, we collect job descriptions, salary plans, organization charts, budget documents, and literally trying to compare as many of your positions to like jobs in the market amongst those survey competitors and comparators. So those comparisons really are, for a moment, really just paper to paper. It is the job that we're trying to study, not the individual. We're looking at pay structures first. You have a grade and step plan, both for civilian as well as for sworn police and fire. You'll see some illustrations in my presentation briefly where our methodology varies just a little bit from civilian to those sworn positions. And I've got some illustrations of kind of the now what piece of that as well. The survey list of cities that were selected, there's a few in here that I not necessarily characterize as bullies unless you look just at population. If you take out Conroe and Woodlands, the average population is right around 9,000 residents. Those bigger agencies are in there simply because they represent where we've lost employees to. That doesn't necessarily mean that they set your salary policies, so any numbers that we come up with are not intended to box you into a corner, but I want to have really good face validity at the workforce level to identify this is our competitor market. You all decide at what level we can choose to compete, if you will. This, and probably this topic alone, can sometimes be a very difficult thing to even get a study off the ground, is identifying what is your market. 90% of your positions, if you're like most of our clients, 90% of our positions are filled within, people, or by people that live within community distance, right? So we're not going to our family or change our school district to take necessarily your next equipment operator job or your next library assistant job. Now maybe your directors, your next chief. Certainly then we could really kind of get into a couple of things, which leads me to probably another disclaimer about this list. When comparing to significantly larger employers, we had to exercise an abundance of caution. And that's not to take away from your director level jobs. But if I am a director in Cleveland, my scope, my span of control, my size of budget, my size of staff is probably a little bit different than it is if I'm a director in Conroe. Or perhaps whatever they call it in the Woodlands, could be a vice president, or maybe it's a director or assistant director. But I just wanted to point that out because, the positions that we compared, you'll see some illustrations here. The job duties are very, very comparable except. So we use some caution when we compare those top positions up against significantly larger comparators. We also included some private sector data where we could. You do have positions that have some portability between the public and private sector. So admin and clerical, skilled trades, finance, HR, those positions exist both in the public and the private sector, so we folded in a little bit of insight from the private sector, which you'll see on our illustrations as well. What sits behind the scenes of our work, about 60 pages of survey benchmarking. Your job title in the upper left, administrative assistant. That exists in multiple departments, so the example that I pulled was that would be specific to the police department. Disclaimer, the private sector, not so much. But when I look at these individual agencies, I'm looking for a job description, almost regardless of title, a job description that matches up to the job duties of our incumbent admin assistant that's performing in the police department. The structural comparison is really minimum plus maximum divided by 2 when I look at the civilian work. I'm going to expand that in just a moment when I look at a police officer survey example. But what is hiding are all of my columns of math. So when I look at the city of Conroe or the city of Santa Fe, they have a salary range. What varies is how wide or narrow that salary range is. Your current civilian scale has steps in it. Not everybody has steps, and those that do might have 5 steps. They might have 12, they might have 15. It's really noisy, right? I'll get back to my illustration of why midpoint matters, but just kind of keep in the back of your mind that that's where I want to see your journey level competent performers be paid. So we'll see this range illustration in just a couple of slides. If I use plus or minus 5% to define competitive, this would be an example of a position where we look pretty good compared to market. When we look at the average public, the average private, in this case just a simple, unweighted divided by 2, we're right around 4% behind on paper for this classification, and that's at the calculated midpoint, right? Really what I'm kind of working towards is, 1, answering the question, how are we doing, position by position, and 2, really kind of teeing up the where do we want to be, and I'm going to focus back on our averages in our midpoint. So not to say your midpoint, kind of falls out of the discussion, but the market midpoint is something that I want to focus on if our goal is to be maybe at the average of these survey agencies. So in this particular case, we're 5th on this list at midpoint, so we're not too bad, right? There's some that pay a little bit more. There's some that pay a little bit less. 1 or 2 pays quite a bit more. Same work, same job classification, same job description, but you get a little bit of volatility there from agency to agency. Another position, certainly post-COVID, that in our travels, and frankly, I would say going back to the late 90s, getting people with a CDL, skilled trades. I don't know, kind of what backgrounds you all have away from this dais, but anybody that's adjacent to construction, engineering, development, growth, skilled trades, blue collar, those positions have proven very difficult to fill and very difficult to keep. We hear about this job in particular a lot. We hear about dispatch. Heaven forbid another natural disaster, then we hear about building inspectors. We kind of lose them to, the trades back and forth a little bit. But this is another example of a position that we look pretty good compared to market. We're within 5%. The private sector is eking out the public sector in this example just a little bit. But we're just kind of within about 4% of market average here. One more example, patrol officer. I've expanded now my illustration to include the range minimum and the range maximum because we need to be competitive at entry. You will see either directly or indirectly an influence from some cities where there's civil service, or at least a very longevity kind of rigid avoidance of paying a brand new officer the same as a 3-year or a 5-year officer. So I am pretty sensitive to our entry rate. There are some agencies that have an entry but not necessarily a top out. So you'll see them kind of missing from that math. We look pretty good at top. We've got a couple of statistical outliers on value. And certainly I remember when top out numbers were in the high 40s to mid 50s, just to hang a date on myself. Those numbers have doubled, certainly in the last 15 to 20 years. But in this illustration, our entry is off market. Our top out looks pretty good, but our starting value for a brand new officer is one that I want to, kind of start to work on, really to try and react to the market, at least this particular market, to become competitive. Also, when we look at migratory patterns, you could almost argue that I don't want to say your market is limitless for a police officer, or even for that matter, a firefighter. But those individuals working on a shift, some of them travel a long ways to go to work. Some of them commute a little bit farther because they might come in, 2 days a week or 2.5 days a week and then enjoy 3 or 4 days off. Some of them will drive, for that extra $5,000 or $10,000 a year, not a surprise at all. We've had a chance to do work recently for Humble again, Tomball, villages, both fire and police. Police has continued to be, moving in their own orbit, I guess I would say, as far as wage growth, goes. There, I think, are probably more vacancies than there are people willing and interested in filling them. But you'll notice we did bring in, I would say, some non-traditional comparators as well. What we're noticing is some officers hit about year 21 or year 22 and they can grab a pension and then go to work in a school district. They're probably 48 at that point, 46 years old. Maybe they try being at home for, I'm smirking here, I have a friend like this, 6 months or a year, and then they're like, maybe I'll go back to work, get another pension. So the school district, suddenly, some of these school districts have, sworn officers on campus. They have a salary plan. Some are a little bit wider, some are a little bit narrower. Not as competitive at entry, but they offer an entirely second, pension, which is kind of an interesting, I don't want to say anomaly, but not, something that you would necessarily think of. Globally, as I mentioned, we tried to survey all of your classifications. We have data on better than 60 of your jobs. Again, using that plus or minus 5%, about 2/3 of our positions do survey more than 5% out, right? So about 69, 70% of our benchmark positions are a little bit low, right? I want to see a little bit of movement. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Police, as I mentioned, they're not too bad at top out, but a little bit off on entry and hiring. We surveyed each of the ranks in police and in fire. And then about, like I said, about 30% of our survey sample looks, pretty good. When I get down into the weeds, it's interesting to study the city's history as far as, adopting and adapting to the 2019-2020 study that was done, the more longevity-driven adjustments that were made more recently. So you kind of see a few gaps here and there. I think that 2023, 2024, when inflation was very, very high, the market, it's possible to say in hindsight that it overreacted to inflation. However, there were a lot of agencies that did 5, 7, 9, 11% salary adjustments simply in reaction to CPI. I think that's a blip on the 10-year kind of average. Generally civilian wages move at 3 to 4% a year. Public safety tends to move in maybe a COLA plus a step type of fashion. That tends to get up in that 4 to 6% range or more, depending on structure design and number of steps. Where I'm working towards is kind of a couple of things. One, we're going to modify the existing civilian salary table. We're removing the steps from it. In this illustration, we've brought in the quartiles, but simply we're creating an open range scale from minimum to maximum. That midpoint, now appears. I think historically it was probably somewhere in your middle steps, but wasn't exactly really a step. What this offers us is a couple of things. One, we have realigned all jobs to market, right? So mathematically, if the survey says, hey, that equipment operator should be in a grade 6 and it's currently in a 5, we're going to move that to a grade 6. That's the average of the market. So we're just going job by job, group by group, job family by job family, and recommending a consistent market relationship for all jobs. Currently, we have some jobs that are at 80 or 85% of market. We have some jobs that are at 98 or 100% of market. Maybe these are a happy accident and these are not, but I want to try and be consistent to the level that we can afford to establish and then maintain. When I place people into this structure, I want to be sensitive first to the existing workforce. So I'll have that kind of illustration coming up, but I want to make sure that everybody isn't just left at minimum, if that makes sense. We'll see that. In this illustration, I think a lot of times we get asked, even in the middle of a study, I've got a 5-year planner that's applied for our vacant position. We're excited, it's been vacant forever. How high can I hire them in the range? I want to pause for a minute and just say, okay, how are we doing for our existing 5-year employees? Are they into our range and not just maybe at the minimum? This open range scale will allow you in the future to provide for things like cost of living. if you so choose, merit, different types of more flexible options for salary growth from minimum to maximum, compared to maybe the rigidity of the existing step plan. Very common in local government in Texas for civilians to be on an open range scale and public safety to be on a step scale. Okay, that paramilitary, a little bit more longevity sensitive. This will give you some options and some flexibility. The goal remains, I want to see your 5, 6, 7-year equipment operator being paid close to the middle of your scale, right? Assuming that they're meeting or exceeding your expectations, I want to see that wage growth occur. We have also made some modifications to your police and fire pay scale. If I recall, your current scale tapered off a little bit in the size of steps. Was that correct? So there were bigger steps on the front end and smaller steps on the tail end. This, I think, flattens that out in about 3% or so increments. Effectively, people will go on to or close to an earned step on the scale. So some slight modifications there. But otherwise, the salary administration might continue the same as far as step eligibility until top out. When we look at the open range scale, we're proposing that people be placed into their range based on that movement and based on their time in position. So there are some individuals that need adjustment, not just to the minimum, but into the range. There are about 20 people that are okay where they are. So if I point just to the study, there are about 20 people that would not see a salary adjustment getting into that open range civilian plan, meaning they are at or above kind of their time in position and position in range that I want to see them, or position in grade that I want to see them. So too, the police and fire pay tables have been modeled to catch up. When we have some more movement at the bottom than at the top, I want to be careful about that compression, so we're spacing people back out onto that scale as well. Going forward, again, I want to see budget for periodic cost of living adjustments. I want to see budget for step increases for public safety, budget for additional increases for civilian, whether that's merit or general or that kind of thing. We're coming in just under $360K plus your benefits load for a 12-month full implementation cost. So we've been working with staff and with finance to identify kind of what those pure numbers look like, to make sure that this is something that we can react to, really just to realign to market at average. But then, as I mentioned, continue to budget for salary adjustments. If you can do additional adjustments in 2026, great. If it's not until the following budget year, recognize that in your current plan, you do have some people that are topped out. That will no longer be topped out, right? Meaning they might have been topped out in a range that was a little bit low. We're going to open that range up. Not anything to do with them other than happenstance, but now they have salary growth opportunity because they're in a competitive pay range again. I will pause there because it's a lot. In your packet, there's kind of a summary report as well. I won't go through that page by page, certainly unless you had very specific questions that might have appeared there. Is there anything that you saw on the slides or anywhere that you might have some follow-up questions, Mr. Mayor? I'll turn it back to you briefly.
I have one question. On the police officer starting salary, where did that number come from? Because I believe we increased it, did we not, Chief?
The minimum, I believe, is currently the 55.
Y'all say his is
It is 55 on the
Scale.
STEP program, but we
Yeah,
agreed
we
to not bring them in less than the 60.
okay. That was okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely wasn't looking for headline fodder there. Then mathematically, you're probably more like 4 to 5% behind.
Okay. That was my only question because, like I said, I've seen the difference before, and then that number on there.
Maybe bringing him a step or two in.
I think it's step 5.
Yeah, it's step 5. One, keeping, hiring and keeping.
And that's why we had that huge turnover.
Yeah. No, I remember. That's why when I seen the 55, I was like, oh,
Maybe we got rid of that number. Yeah, that's great.
But that is where it actually does start for that pay grade though.
Okay.
That's great. Other questions or comments for myself, for staff?
Any other?
Only one
Well-
I had so far.
You know, from looking at the, at this comp study, okay, you know, this is something that needed to be done. You know, I'm feel good about what we're doing. This is something that, you know, it's been a couple of years in coming. You know, we decided that, you know, this is the direction that the city is going in. You know, we trying to do right by our employees, the ones that we have. We trying to stop the bleeding, you know, on our turnover rate. You know, our core group, you know, they've been answering the bell for a long time. But, you know, we just want to, in order to achieve the goals that we want to achieve as a city, you know, we have to be competitive, you know, with the people that are close by, you know, the cities that we losing our workers to. I just think it's something that's needed. You know, if we want to get to where we ought to be, you know, I think this is a big step, you know, in hiring the best qualified employees and keeping them here. You know, I know we not, you know, the years of people staying on the job 30 years. I mean, that rarely happens, you know, with the millennials now, that's different. But, you know, the days of Cleveland being like come in and work a year or two and get a job title and, you know, move 20 miles away, you know, or 30 miles away. You know, we got to stop the bleeding on that. And I think this goes a long way into doing what we're trying to do. And that's hire and retain, you know, the best, you know, staff that we can. And I spoke with Lee earlier, you know, when, you know, to the employees, when much is given, you know, more is going to be asked, you know, and, you know, we're trying to change the culture on that. You know, we want our employees to feel good about the workplace, you know, feel good about the compensation, you know, and knowing that we're doing the best to pay you what we can pay you. You know, we know we can't compete, you know, with the Woodlands, Conroe. I mean, we know that. But we got to stay in the same ballpark with them. You know, we just can't just throw our hands up and stand still. So I feel like I'm on the same page. The council is on the same page with me on this. You know, we'll find out on that. But I just want to, you know, thank you for the work you put in. And Angela, did you want to follow up?
Just as Mayor stated, you know, especially with our police department, you know, as you all know, we barely in May became fully staffed, and we had
You step
five patrol
up, step up
officers.
to the mic where they can
We
hear
actually
you.
had 5 patrol officers that left the city of Cleveland for more money. And again, you know, yes, you know, I know with previous, you know, city manager, there was an increase with longevity and stuff, but we have to understand, yes, that was implemented, but the moment we did that, guess what? Those other cities, they increased theirs. So it's like we're always falling behind. So the only thing that we can do is try to make it better so that our employees can stay. So if we can just make it right, our employees would stay here. You know, we're not asking for much. We're just asking, you know, to make it fair for our employees so they can want to stay here with us and not go somewhere else. So.
Okay, with that being said, Lee, do you have any comments on any of that, or?
I would just say that
That's all I guess.
with the comp study, that's what we put into the budget. So when we get to that later, it'll tell you it's 116,000, I believe, was the variance difference. So it wasn't much.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Do we want to act on that tonight? It's up to council.
I'm set. Nope, I'm set on mine.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you.
Nope, I was done.
I'm very, I'm very anxious on this. This is a day that I've looked forward to. This is I think I came to City Hall around 2019, 2018, something like that. And it's something that, it's been like a baby of mine. You know, I want to see the City of Cleveland employees get paid a fair wage, you know, to where they don't have to drive somewhere else, you know, to work, you know. So, you know, but go ahead and finish.
No, sir.
I just got trigger finger, man. I'm ready to pull the trigger.
Councilmember Buckley, no, I was done.
He has an engagement to catch an airplane, so if y'all
No,
have any
I'm
other
good.
questions, this would be the time to ask.
Make, myself available, answer any questions that you might have. We'll continue to support the city. Part of our work includes a 1-year implementation warranty at no cost, so we remain available for technical advice. The proposed changes will have a little bit of an impact on some policies and procedures that we want to make sure, we clean up as it relates to the salary plan, how people relate, to the salary plan. So we'll continue to work with staff, on an ongoing basis, just to make sure that implementation goes smoothly. There will, all the questions will start tomorrow, I think for staff, from the workforce. And so certainly, no, your staff's been great to work with, super responsive. We just appreciate the opportunity, so.
And then part of this compensation study too was, we got feedback from the actual staff, the employees. And the first go around, from my understandings, there was no survey, there was nothing done. And that was one of my main goals, was to actually ask every single employee and have them jot down exactly what they actually do to make sure that this was done properly in the correct way, so.
I'll make a motion, we approve the compensation study.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion. Okay, Ms. Harrison?
The compensation study,
Hang on, Pam, could you step up to the mic and come on. State your name, please. We're gonna dot every I and cross every T on this.
Pamela Harrison, Finance Director.
Thank you.
Lee mentioned briefly that the budget the proposed budget does include the compensation study. So with the motion, I believe that the verbiage is in the memorandum to approve, implement, and adopt the compensation study. So that it could be that we implement it in the budget so that those numbers don't have to be revised.
I'll make a motion, we approve, implement, and adopt the compensation study.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. McWaters, a second by Mr. Buckley. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries 3-0. Angela, I personally want to thank you, for the hard work that you put in, because, this is, since you got here, this is something that you have pushed for and worked for, and I've been behind you 100% on this. And Mr. Weatherly, we want to thank you and your firm for, coming and, cleaning this up for us. And I just want to, let the employees know that, when much is given, more going to be asked. But we just trying to do what's best, for the city, for our employees, and continue to work on this budget, So what we have to do going forward, we have to get any resources that we can get, grants. We got to fight for everything, we can get. We got to find a way to, take a burden off the taxpayer and get as much sales tax as we can. We got a lot of work to do here in Cleveland, but it's doable. And I just want to thank the council for, approving this.
Thank you, Mayor,
Okay.
and thank you, Council.
Thank you. Okay, item number 5, approve public hearing date for the proposed tax rate of fiscal year 2026. Ms. Harrison.
Good evening again. So, on this one, it's the public hearing date for the proposed tax rate, which is, we have to vote on this, hearing date. And it is, set for August 19th at 6 p.m. So, that's just to approve the proposed tax rate. Do you guys want me to go over the tax rate and what we discussed in regards to the potential?
Yeah.
Okay. So, while, working on the budget, I was looking at the proposed tax rates, and I noticed that the tax levy that we receive in December, once all of the appraised values are finalized and we've adopted a rate, they didn't have a tax levy amount. The tax levy was around 6.2 million, and if you look at our rate, the INS rate, which is for our debt payments, is about 40 cents, and the M&O for operating is at around 37. It's like 36 something, but together it equals the 77-cent rate that we have. And when you break those out in percentages, the 40 cent is 53% of the total tax rate, and the M&O is 47% of the total tax rate. If you take the 6.1 million levy and multiply it by the 53%, the total amount for the INS collections is about 3.2 million. On the worksheet that I sent over to Liberty County, I only requested for 2.5 million to pay debt. So I've noticed, back up a little bit, since I've come on board, I came back in 2023, I noticed that there were excess collections in the debt account. In the debt, in a perfect world, we asked for 2 million, everybody pays their property tax, we would collect right around 2 million to pay our debt. That's the only thing that the monies can be used for. So with the excess collections, the first year that I was here in 2023, I noticed it was about 200,000 excess in there, and I spoke with the previous city manager about it, and we couldn't understand why the collections were there. And when I went back and reviewed previous year's collections, it was over like 60,000, 65,000. So, and as the TERS grew, that excess grew. So we could only assume that it was had something to do with the TERS calculations and how the debt rate is set. So what I'm looking at now is that because we have this excess collections, I've spoken to someone with the TNT specialist. The TNT is the Truth in Taxation. That is the form that is used to calculate every city, school, county, the tax rates that we levy each year or adopt every year for the tax levy. And when I spoke to the specialist, she informed me that the excess should be certified by Liberty County. So this year, we already have an excess of over $700,000. That's money that is just sitting in that account that cannot be used for M&O. I've already reached out to the county about certifying this number. Once it's certified, what happens is this year if you look in the very front of your book, at the bottom page of that the budget cover worksheet, there's an amount of 2.2 million. It's that one. You can hold it. Of 2.2 million, which is what we requested. That number changed. Last year was 2.5, and the 2.5 was a little bit less than what we actually needed because we wanted to utilize some of the excess collections from prior years. Like I said, we had been collecting excess for a few years, and we wanted to utilize some of that, so we asked for only 2.5, and it was about 2.8, I believe, with the TERS reimbursements. So this year, we still got the excess revenue. So what the TNT specialist recommended was that we could certify that amount on the TNT worksheet, which would cause the tax rate to drop. So if we need the 2.2 million is what we need to pay our debt payments, the annual debt payments, and we certify 700,000, that means that we're only going to have to impose a tax rate to collect 1.5 million, which is going to drop that tax rate. So the residents, I'm pretty sure that they're going to see a break in the taxes for this year. It cannot stay at 77 cents because at 77 cents, we're collecting entirely too much. So the offside of that is, once we utilize that 700,000, it may go back, it's going to go up a little bit next year. It will not go back up to the 77 cent, because the 77 cent is too much. It collected too much. So we'll utilize the 700. I'll work with the county. I've also set up a meeting with the TNT specialist. She will be here later this year to actually help me work through the worksheet to get a better understanding of it. I told Lee several times, I mean, I'm very transparent. I am where I am, but I can't put my finger on what was incorrect on it, but I know that something was. So that's why I'm going to sit down and work with her one-on-one. She said she'll commit half a day to working with me, just to help me get a better understanding of how to do that, to complete that worksheet. So that is something that we're looking at. The 76 cents that's on the proposed rate, the attorney, I spoke with Tommy, and his recommendation was to go with the 76 cent, because he said we can adopt the rate lower than that, but we couldn't adopt one higher. So I'm sure it's going to go down, so that keeps us, we met the requirements as far as posting the proposed tax rate and being within the requirements for that. But that's just a backstory to where we're at on the rate. The one that you have in front of you will change. I guarantee you that it will change, but I have to get those final numbers from the county. I'm still waiting on a response back from them as to how we're going to move forward, but it will have to be decreased, whether it's just correcting it or correcting it and utilizing the excess revenue. And I've already spoke with the financial advisor, and he gave me a couple options, and Lee and I discussed it, and we did feel that utilizing the excess revenue to lower it would be the best option. Do I have any questions on that? I know that's a lot. No. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to note that form is what we get, and we just fill in the numbers, so no fault of our finance department.
No. Yeah, we just, when the form is submitted to us, we always adopt the INS rate as presented to us, because that is the number that is supposed to generate the amount of revenue needed to make our bond payments. I have a form that I fill out and send every year that says we have X amount of dollars in principal and interest payments, so this is what we need. We need a tax rate that will produce this amount of revenue for INS, and then the M&O is capped out by state law at the 3.5% increase from prior year, excluding new property value. And another way that I explained it, just to, since we're, anyone that's listening is curious, with the INS rate, being that the city has not taken on additional debt, I believe the last bond was 2021, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But because there has not been any excess revenue, but there is additional growth, you look at it like an annual payment. If our annual payments are $100,000, you have 1,000 people paying that, you're gonna pay $100 each. If that 1,000 people increases to 2,000, you're now paying $50 each. So as our developments grow in our two TIR zones and the businesses that have come into town, that INS rate is expected to go down. So even if there is an increase in M&O for operating, the INS, lower INS should offset that. But for tonight, we're just voting on the public hearing date for the proposed rate. And I'm hoping to have something back before then. It could very well not have anything, and we'll go with what we have. But again, we won't adopt until September, and then we'll get the updated information before the September meeting. So we're just approve the public hearing date for the proposed tax rate, which is next week's meeting.
Make a motion, we approve, we have the August 19, 2025 as the hearing date and proposed tax rate for fiscal year 2026.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Buckley. I have a second by Mr. Warwick. All those in favor? Okay. None opposed. Motion carries 3-0. Pam, I personally want to thank you, for the work that you put in on this and the way you researched everything and your transparency. And I just want to extend this to the public. Lee, from day one, myself, we have the city, we have an open door policy. Everything that we do is public record. If you would like to come in and meet and, you have questions, we're very, very transparent on this. If it's something that you don't understand, that you just went over, you're welcome to come in and meet with Pam or meet with Lee, or meet with all three of us, any council person. We just want transparency on this because at this point, things are looking better for Cleveland. We kind of at the crossroads and we got a lot going on, but we just wanted to be transparent and continue to have that trust, with our citizens of the community. And we want to keep the continuity, we want to keep our team together. And that's a lot of the reasons why, we have issues like this come up when you constantly having turnover, when you constantly, changing councils, when you constantly getting, city manager, finance directors. So, that's something that we work on and we're working on. It's a work in progress. And we're going to continue to do it. And once again, thank you, Pam. I want to thank the whole staff, during this budget, process, So we still got work to do on it. Thank you once again. Okay. Item number 6. Fiscal year 2026 budget workshop discussion. Lee and Pam.
This is what everybody came for.
Okay.
So to start off, I started here in May, so that came in at the best time ever, obviously. Sitting down with staff, I wanted to kind of tell you my methodology of how I did most of the budget with this. So the first is the citizens, right? We want to make sure that they're taken care of. So when we looked over the budget, we want to make sure every department has what they need to supply the citizens. After that, we look at employees, right? Your biggest asset is your employees, so we want to make sure that they're compensated for what they do and their dedication to the city. And then the last thing we looked at were the supplementals. So whatever we had available, we wanted to make sure we prioritized those supplementals and got that money to who needed it. That's how we did the budget this year. Kind of explain a little bit just the non-discretionary. What we did with these, which is on your screen, those are ones that we really don't control. So we took the current rates that were going and we added 5% to be conservative to make sure we had enough money allocated for those non-discretionary items. Everybody that you see sitting over there in the blue section had done tremendous work with this. Everybody had had input. They've given us everything that we needed. But I wanted to give a special thank you to finance and the HR department. For those that don't know, those ladies stayed several nights for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time to make this happen. So thank you to y'all. The current thing in the screen is what Ms. Pam went over. What she was specifically talking about was the 2.2 at the bottom. Correct. Again, this is just going to summarize what we talked about. So the proposed increases this year for what's the fees? Increase in utility billing rates would go up 10%. We want to implement a institution rate. So for those that may not know or understand what that was, we contacted several cities and like a private jail or a TDC jail, some type of institution, they're high water users, high waste users. So there's an implementation fee for an institution, which is different from a commercial rate. We want to look into that and implement that this budget year with council approval. We have the numbers later that will show you what we came up with. Now for airport hangars, we chose to do a 50% across the board hanger adjustment. Now that will, to let everybody know. Oh, $50, I'm sorry, what did I say? Oh, they would be happy with that, but I'm sorry. It's $50 and $10 for the tie down. Now to put that into perspective, The Liberty Airport is at $295, that's their lowest, and that's if you pay for the full year. They're $300 plus if you pay monthly. And Huntsville is $375 is their lowest. I have the rates. We have one commercial hangar lease out there, and that's the 35 cents, but none of these increases will be over that. And then to try to kind of give back to the community, there was a discussion, my understanding from last council, of trying to make a discount for nonprofit organizations. So the current proposed is 25% off of the Civic Center or the Stansel Park rentals is what we come up with at this point. Those are small on your screen, but in your packet, those are kind of the examples that for the institutional rates, they're in there.
So this one, this comparison is your residential water and sewer. If you look at the top left, we have the current city rates and the proposed fee. And it's broken out by meter size. And then if you'll move over for each column to the right, and then there's two, it's the same at the first column on the left is the same at the top and the bottom. We have it broken out by each city that we call to compare it to. And we are below each one. Even the proposed rates are still below the surrounding cities. Per the financial advisor, he did say that we need to look into having a water rate study completed. And I believe that study will take into consideration the operating costs and and compare it to the fees that we currently charge to see if the fees actually cover the cost that what it costs the city to operate. And that will be something that we look at for the fiscal year 27 budget, not the upcoming budget. And the second page was the commercial rate comparisons for the water and sewer. A lot of the cities don't have their commercial rates broken out. They just have it by meter size. Once you get to like a 2-inch, that's just considered commercial. So that's the difference in how it is formatted. On the proposed institution rate, what I did is I took consumption, one of the lower consumptions and one of the higher ones. If you'll see, the 1.2 million is a low consumption. That's not low for most people, but that is low for the institution. And then the higher one was 3.3. Under the current section, that's the current charges for the water and the sewer at the current rates that the city charges. And then the proposed rate is actually a $300 base rate and $7 per thousand over the 2,000 gallons. Dayton currently charges $3.51 for water or sewer. They have the same rate, and $6.21 per thousand in excess of the 2,000. And that's you'll find at the bottom left-hand side of your page. And Huntsville, who also has the institution rate, charges $2.72 for the base rate of water, which includes 3,000 gallons, and their sewer is, they only charge the regular rate of $22.55, which includes 2,000 gallons, and $7.30 per thousand in excess of the 2,000.
Currently, the only thing this will affect would be the TDC prison system in the city.
And the proposed 10% was built into the budget, but the institution rate was not. But what I did is I looked at the, on the increase, that's the total increase in water and sewer, and then the highlighted column is the monthly increase, and then you have your annual, which is just multiplying that monthly times the monthly is the water plus the sewer, and then when you multiply it by 12, that's your annual, the increase that we would see if we adopted this institution rate. So that would be an actual increase to the budget of about, I think the average, so I'll have to work on that number, but it would be an increase to the revenue in water and sewer if we choose to adopt the institution rate.
Does anyone have any questions on the fee schedules?
And as of right now, these numbers, are these numbers kind of based on their usage?
I believe so, yes.
Yes, that's their actual consumption. That was the lowest, bill that I found in the last 12 months, and then the highest.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
The master fee schedule that's included is the current fee schedule that we have in place.
Okay.
That will be updated and presented at the September meeting for adoption, once you guys give us direction on what you would like to, how you would like to move forward with the rates. All of the proposed rates are built into the budget with the exception of the institution rate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Our minimum is, yes, correct.
Under Huntsville and Liberty?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Liberty is at 295, that's if you pay full price for 1 year, and then it's 300 plus, they said, if you pay monthly. So ours would be 275 would be our low.
Yeah, that will come up. Yeah, I agree.
And obviously, if there's any other fees in there that y'all want us to look at, just let us know and we can do some quick research on those.
Any other? Okay.
Oh.
Yes, sir. My name is Rodney Harrison. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was listening to Mr. Lee, city manager, spoke about the discount in reference to the nonprofit. I thought it was an excellent idea. However, we talked about the 10% possibility of 10% increase in the utilities. And I heard Ms. Harrison also talk about an excess of like 700,000. Question, could we reduce exclude the increase of 10% on the senior citizen? Because we do have an excess in the senior citizen who's on a fixed income, maybe Social Security and things of that nature, doesn't have the ability to have that 10% rise. So if they're a certain age, can we possibly pass that savings on to the citizen who's now deserved a break in their
Well,
utilities?
I think they're getting a break on the lower tax rate, on the tax rate being, correct me if I'm wrong. Two different funds.
Yes, sir. My
But
question was-
on your note, we actually did have that conversation briefly today, that once we do the water survey and see where it lies, there was a conversation of potentially having a discounted rate for elderly or senior citizens.
outstanding.
So it's in the target range.
Yeah, I just think it's only fair. Yes, sir.
None of this is concrete. I mean, it's like a work in progress, you know, and we looking at everything. And, you know, what we're gonna do, you know, straight across the board, you know, our main goal is, you know, we have to keep the city running, but we wanna place as less burden as we can on the taxpayers. You know, and we got a lot of seniors, a lot, and, you know, I'm a senior myself. So,
Yes, sir.
but, you know, what we try to do, we really trying our best to, you know, nothing gonna stay the same. You know, there are gonna be increases, but, you know, we gonna be fair with it. You know, straight across the board, you know, with everybody, you know. But as Ms. Harrison stated earlier, you know, on that, you know, we'll have a break on those taxes here. So, you know, there's still a work in progress though, Rodney.
Yes, sir, I understand. I just thought it'd be something to mention that was important, and I do appreciate you said that you've already talked about it, and we'll just see how it comes out. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Get into the general fund 100 revenues. This was your 2024 actual, the 25 projected, and the proposed budget for 2026. We're looking at a slight decrease from the projected. I know Ms. Harrison has gotten some of the numbers in. We're looking to possibly be on target to hit 6 million in sales tax.
Yes, on the three-year comparison, that is the actual net amount. If you'll turn, go to the next slide. That number is actually the bottom line number of the sales tax section. You see there's a property tax section, and then there's three items that create the sales tax. So any revenue that we get for a sales tax, 1/6 of it goes to EDC. So although we're projected, originally my projections when we did these back in March or April, I did 5.7 as a projected revenues. Sales tax, you never know what, you know, how people are going to shop, what the trend will be. So I did 5.7. We're currently at 5.5 million for this year, so I do believe we will hit that 6 million mark. So that number will actually go up. We only budgeted for 5 million in sales tax revenue. We got just slightly over 5 last year, 5.3. So I didn't want to project too high to where we come in under that amount, and then we're struggling to meet the needs of to keep operations going. So we budgeted 5 million to be conservative. We're going to hit the 6 million, I'm pretty sure. But of that, 1 million will go to EDC. We have to give them a 1/6 of all of the sales tax revenue. So we are budgeting for the 6 million next year, which is great for the city. But 1/6 of it will go to EDC, so that's a slight increase in that. And then also, the revenue, we're projecting to add money to the fund balance, and the sales tax did play a big part in that, the excess collections and sales tax revenue. Do y'all have any other questions on revenues? Anything? If you look in the column to the furthest to the right, there is the percent, the dollar amount change and the percent change. That is the difference between the 25 adopted budget and the 26 proposed budget. The reason we did not use the amended column is because the amended column includes capital carryovers. We have some line items that are carryover every year, so that's kind of misleading to use that number as a starting point for when you do your budget comparisons. Have any questions over revenues?
What's the reason that energies has gone down? Do we know?
That one, that's the 365. We have the 365 for the adopted and 365 for the proposed. Our projected is 388, but that is, again, just projected. That number could change. When doing the budget, I prefer to be conservative. If we have more revenue come in and we know it's just, we'll allocate it at that time, but I don't want to pad the budget and say we're going to have more money than what we have, and then we're struggling to meet the needs. But energy probably will go up with the growth of the,
Yeah, I was just saying it's 24, they're at 413, and then it went
And-
down.
okay, so
That's
in
'cause of consumption.
24, there was an extra deposit in there, that we got
Okay.
two, there was one for the prior year that was in 24.
Okay.
And a lot of the format for the following ones are going to be the exact same way. So there's going to be that percentage that if y'all have any questions on, we could answer ourselves, Pam, or any of the directors if you have any.
I will also notate that the amount in the fund balance transfer in, which is the last section in revenues, it's under non-operating. That number will change when we go through supplementals, depending upon what is approved. It's notated, so that amount does not include all proposed supplementals. Any questions on revenues?
Now we get into the individual departments. So your first is going to be the city council. We're proposing this year 46,100.
Yes, that is the proposed budget for 26. The difference in the 24 was the AV system that was installed in council that was actually paid for by EDC but allocated to council to ensure that the asset was recorded in the correct fund. Any questions on city council?
Probably cheapest salary.
Absolutely.
Next will be 112 administration. And that total for the proposed is 1,640,494. Proceeding sheets after that are, again, the percentage changes and the line items. Most of these that we go through, the salaries obviously are going to have an increase due to the proposal for the pay raises and the fair market.
That's already figured in the proposed budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
These numbers also include an increase in the benefits cost, which will be presented next week, but it is built into the budget, the numbers that we receive for benefits.
That increase was 6% for medical.
Quick question on the workman's comp. See, we budgeted for 3,100, but yet in projected year in 25 and 24, we were both at over 10,000. Are we just expecting less? 511-201-1060.
That was a correction to that. The actuals on that, okay, again, I'm transparent. They were using a worksheet that I created back when I worked here in 2008, and it had not been updated since I left, and I just updated.
Wow. I just wanted to make sure we were holding enough there. 'Cause
Yes, we've reviewed those numbers and the allocations for the departments.
We sat down with the directors and went through every line item to make sure, and we did find some that we had to do some corrections on, but very few, so.
No, thank you for the clarification.
We have no questions, we can move to 113. It's going to be Civic Center. The proposed budget is $280,301. For those that may not know, Miss Ashley does an amazing job with her budget.
she does.
She is very frugal. Does anyone have any questions on Civic Center? All right. We'll go to 114, which is the court. That proposes 234,164.
Good.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. Technology.
Technology 115, proposed 696,290, but I believe, Pam, there's something else with that? Is that the contract? Blue Iron? That's 600. 600, okay.
Yeah, it's almost 600.
The difference in this budget will be, explained in the supplementals. There were quite, a few supplementals that were included in the base budget with this, for this department for technology.
And those supplementals that y'all are recommending are included in these numbers.
Yes, the majority are, I believe, that is actually at the end of the budget packet, but it's highlighted which ones are included in the numbers and which ones will actually increase the budget.
We can move to 116 if everybody's ready. 116 is going to be facility services. Proposed budget, 247,672. I believe this was created last year? Okay. So some of the increase is obviously due to learning what we need and how we have to operate with facility services on their own. And we're going to work on the facility services. Some of the ideas that Ms. Ashley had is we're going to try to make sure that all the facilities have the same type of roll dispensers, and that way we can kind of reduce the cost and not having to have so much supply of differing.
Standardized.
Yes, sir.
I like it.
So I know that was a concern to begin with. Or it has been a concern for her.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's good.
Well, she's got the green light now. All right, next is going to be 120 Police. Their proposed budget is going to be $4,149,999.
Can you explain why overtime was so high in this year's budget?
We'll let Chief explain that one.
Certainly, I'll be happy to share some of that, although it seems like kind of a poor management on my part, but I will certainly tell you, I was prepared for the spanking. But whenever you have 6 people leave in the middle of a budget year, it's kind of difficult. Some of them wasn't patient enough to hang on, as we continually tell them if they could have waited, until October 1st. But some of this bleeding started around August. So when you look at about 7, and then we started picking back up personnel mid-May. So you're talking about 7.5 months of people having to work a lot of long hours. And even when we started getting the new people in, as we look at the percentage of the budget now, like I said, again, I feel bad sometimes that it's so high. I've never been that high on any of my budgets in 13 years over. But when I look at it, you have 2-man units now that are rolling because someone's having to train those individuals who are non-experienced or a lack of experience for this city and town or area. 1 or 2 of them did have some police experience, but the geographics they're not familiar with. So that's kind of been a training process. But again, 7.5 months of extra long hours. It was, of course, a training year for the state of Texas that we have to go through. So many people were away in training, getting that complete by August 31st, or we'll be tagged with that. But made a no deficiencies today on a TCO audit, so that was great. I'm proud of that. That was a sit down. But I would like to just say that it was some scheduling changes. We went to 12-hour shifts, and there was a lot of extra hours. And I'm proud. I can truly want to publicly thank those individuals who stuck with the department and stayed and worked those long hours. And those young men and women and Captain and his staff hung around. We were down to like 8 officers at one point, and that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I really want to applaud those individuals who stuck with us. And many of them, I'll say several of them went to the sheriff's office, and there was a couple of them that left. I just want to say some extra funds on the table that they would have gotten here that they didn't get over there, that kind of hinted at wanting to get back. But I was told by a couple of people around the room here that, hey, no, some of them were on their second term. So, but that's kind of where some of the overtime came in. Of course, you got court. Yes, we had a hurricane. Of course, when you got those things that come through, it's extra hours. But and the freeze, yeah, it was a busy year, and we got through it with just the minimum staff that we had. So I was really proud of the limited manpower that we had and was able to get through it.
And that just highlights the importance of making sure we stay in the fair market value range.
Correct.
And hopefully the 5 that he hired, all of them will stay, so we'll obviously see a reduction hopefully in the overtime rate.
I also,
Thank you for the explanation.
I also want to point out that although Chief's overtime is up by about 170,000, his regular salaries are projected to be down by 400,000 because he did not have regular staff and he had his current staff working overtime. So we're actually, because they work the overtime and not the regular pay, it's a savings.
See, you have good management, you save money.
But, Chief, I just want to kind of chime in. Those 8 officers that stayed, and I see Captain Phelps back in the back. Man, I appreciate you guys. My heart bled for you guys last year. Y'all had a tough year, understaffed, freeze, hurricane, but y'all still standing. And I just want to thank you guys for just stepping up and fighting through that adversity, and I thank the guys that stayed. And, so, maybe with with what we have going on tonight, for example, with the salary study, comp study rather, we gonna keep up. We can't fall behind. That's gonna be a moving target, for as, retaining employees. So, thank you once again, Captain Phelps. Been doing it a long time, man. Thank you.
Is there any rollover for the evidence room or anything, or is that done now?
Yes, we had a here maybe a month ago, the yearly walkthrough. There was a couple of minor little things before
In the mic.
totally locked it down.
Okay.
But those items should be taken care of here pretty quickly upon the comparison. And we're still in the process.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone have any further questions on police? All right, we'll move along to animal control, which is 122. For those of you that don't know, our animal control officer has passed his TCOL, and he will be transferring over to Cleveland Police Department. So we will be looking for an animal control officer.
Awesome.
Great. That has been asked for a lot, so yes.
And of course, that's going to be, the proposed is $87,264 for animal control.
That ain't bad. Yeah. Get your mic, yeah.
87, the additional is going to be part of that comp study to paying the animal control a little bit better than what he was receiving. So, yeah, that's going to be good to keep that person as well.
Everybody good?
Yeah, we good.
Move on to 123, developmental services. Proposed budget is $499,452. Do you want to say anything? Good to go? Good to go?
Do we have a lot of legal problems in 24 for development services, or
Other professional services?
Pass the mic.
legal in general in 24 was 76 and,
That was the settlement for where they demoed the house.
oh, okay,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Forgot about that.
I forgot about that.
That was,
Yep.
what, 10 years ago when that happened? Was that about 10 years ago?
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
or 5 or something. They're hitting right in the range of the lawsuit being dropped, and they brought it back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was before my time. And I've been here 8 years, so, wow. Okay.
I'm good.
Any other questions?
Move along to streets, 130. Proposed budget, $669,233. Again, we followed the same methodology with all of them. We went through each line item, checked what their current spending trends were, and that's how we developed our proposal.
I think you already said it. You already went through these numbers with the departments.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we kind of do that because there are some one-offs, so we want to make sure that we're more in line and they could tell us that. So, if they were trending 2,000 and then they turned up 5, they could tell us that 3 was a one-off. So we make sure we're more accurate on our proposal. If there are no questions, we can move on to 140, which is the garage. That's 11,225 proposed for this year's budget, 26 budget. with this one, we're making more concerted effort to make sure for police and all that, that the cars come to him first, so we can keep it internal. Just that by that time, all we have to do is buy the parts, so the labor will be internal.
Good.
160 library. 2026 proposed budget, 526,683.
Mary, you okay over there? No comment? Okay, I was wondering, you mighty quiet.
I know when I got here, I was told Miss Mary always stays within her budget, so, again, another good steward of the money.
All right. Okay, y'all good?
Yep, yep.
161 cemetery parks, the 2026 proposed budget is 690,845. Pam, is there anything significant between the 2024 and 25?
Just the professional services.
And what is professional services?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, my bad. Well, question on that, Roger, is that getting any better? The mowing?
So at the end of this year, we'll be going out for new mowing contract.
Okay, well, I think that kind of answers it. I was just wondering, you know.
I just don't think the expectations of the city have been met, so we're going to go
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I kind of figured that, but I just want to hear it.
It's a good way of putting it, Roger. I appreciate that. All right.
It is?
162 sports park. 2026 proposed budget, $35,050.
So that's basically mowing also.
Yeah.
Utilities.
And of course, after we do budget and it gets approved and all that, when we get out of the budget season, my task is going to be getting with each department and see where we can kind of be a little bit more efficient, what we can bring in maybe versus having to bid out, so we can be a little better.
On the utility side of the sports park, do we need to increase our light fee for that, or is that just an increase all the way across? 'Cause I know they pay if they use the lights, they pay that fee for it.
So the fees that we collect for the lights from CYBSA is not included in this number. This is just the allocation to the park, and then we're reimbursed for the months that they pay it, but it's in a revenue line item, not an expense. So it's just recorded separately. We were told we had to do it that way.
And that agreement's coming up, so will we be doing a renegotiation on that agreement?
Yeah, I remember, I just seen it was almost an $800 increase. Or actually, what? Yeah, he projected, 15, and it's 17.8.
On that, yes, so on the projected, those were the non-discretionaries that Lee spoke about at the beginning. All of those, our utilities, property, insurance, and what was the third one? We don't pay the sales tax. Okay, so, well, that's just, if you take that number times a 5% increase, and that's what we did across the board for utilities. And each year we'll adjust it based off of the prior year actuals.
Moving on to 170 fire. 2026 proposed budget, $2,192,442. Again, I think fire had some overtime there. Some of that, again, was attributed to the storms and how their schedule is worked based off of fire. It's a little different than normal.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll turn it on. Mayor, Council, thank you. Yes, a small portion of it was from the storms, the freeze and the hurricane. Majority of it is the way that our schedule works is different from any other department in the city. And it took a little bit more, I think, for a complete understanding of it and what have you. So the way that it was allocated was just not in line with the way it was actually set up within the budget or whatever. So it just had to be moved around to be corrected for that, so.
That's the notated increase for the overtime for them. We wanted to be more in line with what what we know they're gonna spend.
And I know you've already went through this, I'm just asking the question. We know activity level's gonna remain high. All statistics say that but we've decreased our fire truck repair 10 grand, which is less than we've spent since 2024. 24,000 less than we actually spent in 2024.
Yes, sir. So the discussion for reducing that was the fact that because we've lost so many of the older trucks, the hope is that we're not going to have as much repairs. The new booster is online that's being built right now. So the hope is that that number will be reduced the next year just because we don't have the 5 20-plus-year-old trucks that we had a couple of years ago. And that's just the hope. Whether that's going to be a reality or not, I guess we'll find out next year. But that was the hope going into this next year.
Yeah, if we upgrade that equipment age, we should see less maintenance. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Chief. Good.
177, emergency management. 26 is gonna be $31,730. Of course, we hope we don't have to use him.
Okay.
Next fund's gonna be our non-operational, 180, 190.
These are our two grants that we currently have in the process. The one is the mid-mod for the generators at the lift stations and the fire station, and also the drainage grant that we're working on. So these, we don't budget for these because this money is received as revenue on one side, and then the expense account offsets it. So they send us the money and we pay it out. Once we have to start meeting our matches for these projects, we will need to include that in the budget.
Okay? Yep. Okay, moving right along.
Next one's gonna be your Unity Donation Fund, 102.
This is the fund that Ashley would like to,
So the Unity Committee, we have kind of dissembled. We didn't have as many showing up to meetings and volunteering. So the city has taken on Unity Committee as far as continuing the events. So pretty much in talking with Pam, those funds are pretty much put into, we're not using those funds, should I say. because it's on the city side and we're just using it out of our events account. And yeah, and those come from Frontier Waste through our agreement that we have with them.
All right, next one's going to be your 131 Municipal Airport Fund. The 2026 proposed is 742,526.
Okay, so this is a new fund that we will be implementing either by the end of this year or next year. So airport, as you may know, was broken out from general fund last year. We were told by the FAA that the revenues should be allocated back to airport 100%. So airport had always been in 100. We decided to keep it in Fund 100. And then I realized that tracking that revenue is a lot more difficult with it being under the same fund code as general fund. So this simply takes all of the revenue for airport and all of the expenses, and it changed the first three leading numbers from 100 to 103. And that will now generate, it will make it easier to track the revenues and expenses to make sure that everything that is supposed to be allocated to airport is being paid out of airport. So, for instance, like when we have the credit card payments, we pay those out of general fund as one lump sum amount. If it's $50,000 spent in 1 month, that's what we'll pay. And then we allocate it to the departments as we need to. Well, the payment comes out of general fund, and because airport is a Fund 100 as well, we have to make a note to say that we need to transfer X amount of dollars from airport to general fund to cover their credit card purchases. Having those first three digits as different numbers as a 103 instead of 100, it will generate what we call it due to, due from, and the system will automatically know that the airport now owes that money back to general fund. And same thing with their deposits, because we have some renters that call here to pay their fees, and that money goes into general fund, and then we have to transfer it to airport. So it just makes it easier for record keeping and tracking and making sure that we're staying in line with the FAA requirements. And the total rental rate is, it includes the proposed rate with the increase, the proposed increase.
Not that I'm aware of. The plan is to do a more thorough comp study on this. I know we've implemented some of the advisory board's concerns with the FOD and all that, so that's now taken care of. I know Roger's working on the striping, so that's what a lot of that money for the increase is going to help, is to make better arrangements for our infrastructure.
And, also, the airport deal, that's like a work in progress. I mean, this is our second year of, managing the airport. It had been done one way for so long, and I think this will be our third airport director in 2 years. So, which Lee and I have already discussed it, and it's a lot of work to be done as far as getting the airport situated, online with the other departments, in the city. So it's still a work in progress.
We'll move along to Economic Development Corporation Fund 200. The proposed for that is going to be $1,601,553. Oh, let me rephrase that one, apparently. $1,601,553.
What's the increase in professional services? Mike?
That's just kind of reclassifying funds that were in different line items in the prior year into professional services, because that's kind of a better classification for them in terms of what the funds are being used for. So I think we used, previously those funds were in planning target analysis, so we just moved them to a different line item. So you should see that change also in that line item for planning and target analysis. 100% decrease there. I mean, so, yeah, so overall, this budget, different variables. We have a lot of staff now in EDC, so a few part-time positions and then a full-time position. So that's an element, of course, and then lots of different projects. We're doing the hangar project at the airport, so that's accounted for in here, and then some of the things we've been working on, progress on the wayfinding and signage improvements, parks projects. And then a lot of this is earmarked for incentives. We never know what that would actually look like in a year, so this is just kind of a best guess. So trying to accomplish a lot of things and see what we can do to, accomplish our goals, which is increase tax base, create primary jobs.
Are we planning to get another gateway sign?
So we're wrapping up the plan, and these funds would actually be used to start implementing and putting out new signage out in the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't increase what I asked.
An increase in gateway signs?
Yeah, because you're just haven't done anything with it, so that's why I was asking.
I think with that, we wanted to make sure we got through the rebranding.
Yeah, no, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's currently it's adopted at 100,000.
Yeah.
Or you're just talking about the projection?
Yeah, projection.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Emilio, I just want to, give kudos to you and your staff. I mean, this past year, it's been a lot going on with EDC. I see a lot of growth. I see a lot of movement. Now that you have a full staff, well, almost full. But that's progress. I see a lot of progress with Heidi and
Courtney,
yeah. She's came in, hit the ground running. I've gotten a lot of good comments on the content. So let's just keep it up. And like I said, the turnover that we have, we want it to be good turnover. If we have an employee that leaves within house, it might be a bad thing on one end, but then again, it's a good thing. So, but just keep doing what you're doing. Tell your staff, they appreciate it. We see what's going on, so.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
We can now move on to the Water and Sewer Fund 300 revenues. And the projected proposal on that's going to be $5,886,525. Pam, do you want to take the difference on that one from the 21?
You want to explain that?
The difference
21
between the
million
21.
Oh, yes. Skip past that page, I assume. Okay, so on the 3-year summary, if you see on the 24 year in actual, in the non-operating, there's 16 million, which dropped down to 83, and then to 0 for proposed. The 16 million in 24 was when we took on the water waste treatment plant and water. And Pinewood Trails. So when we take on those assets, we have to record it as an entry. The auditors record it to what's called a contra account. So it's an asset account just to recognize the that we now have those assets, increase the value of the assets for the city. And it's just done on the revenue, in a revenue line. The 83,000 projected for this year, though, that's FEMA reimbursements, just like we saw in Fund 100. And then again, we don't budget for any grant or FEMA reimbursements. Hopefully don't have any storms. So that's why we did not project anything for 26. That's the difference in that budget.
Thank you.
So the Water and Sewer Fund, 5310, that budgeted proposed amount is going to be $668,061.
Just a little on the financial obligation uptick. On the water and sewer fund, 5310. For 15 to the 62.
Oh, yes, that's the transfer out to technology. So because water and sewer is in its own fund, all of technology is in Department 115, which is in Fund 100. The increase is the implementation of Encode 10. We're currently on Encode 9, and to update the software, it is an additional about 30,000, 35,000, and then we have the regular cost for the annual maintenance and just having the software license.
Thank you.
And to correct myself on that one, that's going to be for the water administration. That portion, we'll go on to more further. Next is going to be your Water Sewer Fund 5330, water production. The proposed on that is $1,635,885.
Why such a decrease in professional services?
The professional services included the Westwood payments for the Texas Water Development Board
Okay.
application. And that will be in this fund and the next one for water production and
The
sewer.
Okay.
Mhm.
Just one of the significant ones that we have on there is the equipment repair. That's going to go up, obviously, but
Yeah.
we're going to try to start doing the implementation with the new infrastructure coming in, and so we want to make sure we had allocated some money for repairs.
You'll also see under financial obligations, some new lease principal and interest payments. That is the SIB loan and the Amoresco loan for the meter change-out program.
Now we'll go into wastewater, 5350, proposed budget, $1,400,771.
I'm good.
Water and sewer, 300.
This is the solid waste for the garbage services. We did have a slight increase from Frontier, I believe, of 1.04%. But with that increase, because we rounded up on the cost that's been allocated to the residents with the 11% franchise fee, we're still good with the current rate, so I'm not recommending an increase at this time. And you can also see the transfers out to general fund, the decrease of $205,203.
Moving along to debt service fund, 500. The proposed on that is $2,011,484.
This is the INS fund that I spoke about with the tax rates. So I built into the budget 2 million as the current amount that we need. On the sheet, you see that it says 2.2 million for payment, so I'm hoping to utilize fund balance of 162,000. That is my best guesstimate of what we're going to need. You'll also see that there was a decrease. It looks like an increase on here because of the parentheses. I can get into the financial lingo. It's a contra account on the TERS transfers, so it just has the opposite effect. This account carries a credit balance, and these two items have to be debits to show that we have to pay that money against the revenue received for the TERS. The reason that decreased is because when I spoke to the financial advisor, some more information that he gave me was that a portion of the TERS needs to be should be reimbursed out of maintenance and operating, because that's where those taxes are collected. It wasn't our understanding that it had to be split at first, but this, moving forward, it will be split. So that put a burden on general fund, but it decreased the tax rate. It'll be a smaller amount that we're needing for INS also.
The next one, 5510, proposed 2,011,484. Again, that's your two TERS accounts, TERS 1 and 2.
Yes, those are our debt payments. And the fiscal agent fees. Fiscal agent fees are just the annual fees that we have to pay for the, basically the management of the payments, service fee. And then the principal and interest payments. And then behind that, you'll have the TERS allocations broken out. The TERS allocations will change. The amount that we pay for the TERS is based on the tax rate, and because we do not know what the tax rate is going to be, this is what the financial advisor and I came up with. We stayed on the phone for about an hour. It's a circular formula. We plug in the tax rate, and then that generates the TERS payment, but then the TERS payment is reimbursed by the tax rate, a portion of what you collect, so you have to keep, yeah, it's a circular formula. But, so this number, depending on what we approve for the tax rate, that number will change also. And it is the same for both TERS 1 and TERS 2, as far as the calculations and the possibility of the number being adjusted.
Next one after that is going to be our hotel motel 600 revenues. The proposal for that is $306,000. We're hoping for more on that one, so hopefully, once we kind of get up and running and get some more stuff going on, hopefully the hotel motel will go up. Lost my place.
So on Fund 610, Department 610, Fund 600, there was an error on the proposed budget. If you will look at the professional services, that bottom line on the first page, the proposed budget is entered as 0, and that is actually our Blue Iron contract payment. Blue Iron is our IT service, and that was an oversight on my part. I put it was entered in as 0, and it should be $32,160. CVB currently has excess revenues of $102,740, so that will just decrease their allocation or deposit to their fund balance by the amount that we have to pay for the Blue Iron contract. So still enough, more than enough to cover their budget and build their fund balance. Ashley has big dreams for her hotel motel fund, so she adds to it every year.
Next one's gonna be our CVB 620. Proposed on that is 138,260. Next one's gonna be your Capital Equipment Fund 701. Proposed on that is 242,300.
Two different
That one part,
funds.
that's part's gonna be your water sewer rate.
Oh, okay. The capital equipment fund, 701. You got the two bar graphs.
Yeah, the first one's water and sewer rates, and I believe the second one's at capital outlay.
First one's revenue, second one's expenses.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, sorry about that. Yeah, the water and sewer rates, that is the actual revenue that we collect. The Fund 701 is funded by a $2 street fee that is added to the utility bills, and it's transferred over to Fund 701 from 300. So the first page is the revenues. The reason that 24 is, zero, we purchased, I believe, a truck at the end of the fiscal year, but we did not receive it before September 30th. So that cost was actually carried over to fiscal year 25. And on this budget, Roger, I believe, wanted to go ahead and purchase his truck.
Two trucks.
And 2 trucks.
Patch truck,
A patch truck. Hold on.
pass.
So I got with Pam, and we decided to get 2 trucks on this fiscal period. So next year, I will be building up that fund for bigger purchases that the city will need in the future. So we're getting a half-ton truck and a three-quarter-ton truck. One of them is going to be a patch truck, eliminating the one we have with problems, so the guys could get more work done accordingly.
Our next one's gonna be your Special Revenue Fund 900.
This fund just reports the projected, because we do not budget for money seizures. That is money that Chief is awarded collected during traffic stops and
Seizure money.
Seizure money.
Seizure money.
so we do not budget anything, but you can see the projected where he's received his LEOS funds and then also utilize some as those funds are restricted as well.
Next one's 915. 915 is gonna be the court technology.
It's going to be the same as Chiefs. We do not budget for it, but these funds will actually be Fund 915 and 916, due to recent legislation, will be merged into one. Hannah and I were actually discussing that at the beginning of this meeting, and we're looking for the best option to merge those funds. But it's not budgeted, but there is a fund balance, and you can see that 21,000 was utilized this year. It's projected for
That was the cameras. That was for security for the cameras, for the PD, to get all those replaced.
So, once we got through the budget and looked and seen what we had, we tried to prioritize the money that was available and then prioritize what was asked by all the various departments. So that's what you're going to see on the next following pages is the supplemental requests. You'll see some in green and some in blue. The blue, we're paying that out of the fund balance. The green is out of the base budget. There's a couple of those that are going to be reoccurring. So that's the money that they're going to continue to keep in their budget for future. I know there was some interest for high water rescues, so we took that into consideration, and we do have one on there under fire. It's for the inflatable rescue boat. Now with that, there's also a reoccurring expense that I'll let the chief talk about, and that's something that we're seeking. If y'all want to add that, we could also add that. But that would be a reoccurring.
Thanks, City Manager, Mayor, Council. So the request was for a boat and the trailer and the equipment and everything that's on there, and a class that's built into the 40,000 that's on there for boat operation itself. That does not include training the firefighters, though, in swift water rescue and those sorts of things that once they're on the boat to actually conduct those rescues. That's a recurring cost because the certifications are only good for a short period of time, and then you have to renew those certifications and continue your training. So that's something we're going to have to see on a regular basis. The boat, though, just like most of our pieces of apparatus, are a one-time purchase.
So if we do the boat,
We need to do the class.
you're gonna need the class and the awning to keep that boat covered so it doesn't.
Yes, sir.
So it's about 58 plus the class then.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's because it's reoccurring, so,
Which that would be the portion we would
yeah.
add to his reoccurring expense, if that's what council wishes.
I think so. I think we need it.
Yeah. They would do to move forward with it, but
Yep.
this coming budget, with 26's budget, I think.
Agreed.
Thank you.
And then lastly is going to be the personnel supplemental requests. There was one position that was added that we feel is much needed, and that is going to be a Assistant Director of Public Works. As we all know, and I was told very quickly that, Roger does have a lot of burden, a lot of departments having to go through things. So in speaking with staff, we felt that it was necessary to kind of divide that up with giving him an assistant for that purpose. And also, in the reclassifications, based off the comp study, the airport director will now be named airport manager, and then they would also fall under the umbrella of Roger and Public Works. So again, that's a needed position that we feel is going to benefit Roger to kind of help separate that work for him and give him somebody underneath that can move forward.
I think it's a good way to move forward.
I like it.
That was also built into the budget, the proposed budget. The numbers that are before you includes that position, and it is freezing the superintendent position. We did not budget for that.
And you'll see under the outcomes, those are the ones that were either reclassed or changed. The reclass for the development service coordinator is now code enforcement.
That's the only question I have too, though. If we're not classified for another superintendent, how's that gonna fall?
So we have superintendent still on there, but we're gonna freeze that position at this current time. There's not anybody necessarily able to take that on right now. And again, that was also for the budgetary purposes. We'll freeze it until we can get some staff trained up to take that over.
Back to the supplementals, the ones with the asterisk by the number, those were not included in the budget as presented. So those are one-time charges that will be an increase to the fund balance that is in the proposed budget, revenue section. Because on the revenue, there's a line item that says fund balance, transfer in, and we would have to increase it for each of those numbers in blue that are marked with an asterisk. We'd increase the fund balance to be able to cover those items.
That 7 in information technology and 2 in police?
Yes, and then also in water production, there were 3 items that will,
Water production,
just the next page,
inspection, scuba air packs.
yes.
Sounds good.
And like I said, with the, use of, fund balance, we are adding over $1 million, projected to add over $1 million to our fund balance because of the excess revenue received and because the departments, were conservative with their spending this year. So we are able to add to our fund balance.
Or they were being nice to me with it being my first budget.
Yeah, that too.
Well,
We do want to make a note, though, that the 1.6 that was coming out, we reduced that as well. And that's the goal, is to try to reduce that every year, so we're not taking out of water and sewer to pay.
I just want to thank the staff, you know, because as we can see, a lot goes into this. There's so many moving parts that go into this. And myself and the council, you know, we have the budget now. And between now and then, I mean, for the council that couldn't be here tonight, you know, it'd be a good idea to go over this. And if you have any questions, I mean, this is for all of us. And this next week, you know, if we got any questions, it's good to get with Pam, get with Lee, and go over it with them and get an understanding of it, because it's just so much, you know. So it'd be a good idea to, you know, just kind of just go over it. And if it's something you question, you know, they'll, you know, like today we came in and we sat down and some of my concerns were cleared up. And this is a lot, you know, to digest, you know, in a short amount of time. And as I said, the ones that could make it tonight, you know, if you have any issues, and even the people that are watching on YouTube, you know, we've got an open door policy. Everything we doing is public record. And Pam, now the last audit that we had, what was our surplus then, you know, in months?
66%.
Go
I tried
there.
to take some of that, but
Repeat
it was hard.
Lee knows that number because he's trying to dip into it, so.
But look, repeat that. Just
Six-
let the people know the surplus. Explain that. in
Yes,
other words.
so the way that the fund balance is tracked, the law or our charter requires that we keep 25% of operating, which is 3 months of operating, available in the, fund balance. That's 25%. We currently had 66% as of end of year of 2024, which is more than double what we're required to have according to the charter. Lee wants to use 6% of that. And we're also adding, projected to add at least $1 million to that. If, you know, nothing happens between now and the end of September, we'll be increasing that by another $1 million. And he's been instructed that he can't use that.
Well,
It is definitely a constant struggle.
you know, I just like to just, you know, stress that to the taxpayers, and it shows them the how we've been very conservative with the taxpayers' money, you know, and we got to continue that. And I also take my hat off to the previous councils and, you know, the past. the previous mayors. We've been very conservative with our taxpayers' money, and we have to continue. But on the other hand, we have to provide the best service that we can. We got potholes that need to be filled, streets, water and sewer, but we work real hard on getting grants. I want to take my hat off to all the department heads, the police grants, the library got, what, 46,000 last week. The GLO grants. I mean, y'all have just done a tremendous job. And sometimes I feel like the taxpayers don't really know that, you know, how much work that y'all have put in, you know, to get these funds. Because, you know, our main source of income is property tax and sales tax. And, you know, we're working now on some ways to increase our sales tax. I think Mr. Buckley got a project going on, and we're gonna get that rolling. You know what I'm talking about. You know, our job is to get as much as we can out of the sales tax, and we can be less burden on our taxpayers. So overall, I just want to take my hat off, and, you know, to the council and the staff, and I'm reaching out to the public. If you have any questions, any concerns, we've got open book, open door. Lee is here. I'm here at request. You know, so you know, once again, thank you, and we'll try to wrap this up on the 19th. Any more, Pam?
I will say, just to bounce off of what the mayor said, the increase in sales tax does in fact decrease the property tax burden because of the way that our sales tax is structured. A portion of it is allocated to property tax relief, so the more that we collect in sales tax, it does automatically decrease our property tax rate. And then I also wanted to just clarify and get information feedback for me and my department. If there's anything that you guys have questions on or want us to look at changing before next week, put into the budget, I'll take any feedback on that before we close for the evening.
Okay, if there's not any more questions or comment, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, got a motion and a second by Mr. Roscoe. Roscoe wants to stay all night. Let's go home.